So signs are good. Dusty Martin to play up forwards, and he knows a thing or two about that. I think Luke Hodge might have a little bit of first-hand experience of that as well. Hodgie, good morning.
No, just rest him, Gerard. Just rest him. Look, trust me, speaking from experience, there's no more daunting sign than a finals game. Lights on at the Gabba, full packed crowd, and you're standing down there at centre-half back and you see Dusty walking towards you. And at the end of the game, you walk away and he's got 6 goals and they've won convincingly. So I felt that firsthand, but look, fingers crossed for the Brisbane people up here that the Lions have learnt a little bit from a few big games, and obviously they've had a few lessons dealt to them the last few weeks.
So what do you reckon he can do? This is, once he's picked, as long as he gets through the captain's run, he hasn't played since round 16. There's 8 games. I reckon there's 4 in the 8 that sort of hint at what he might be able to do. He was able to hit top speed, Damien Hudwick says, so there's a little bit there to draw on. He is the finals player of the year. I can't wait to see him.
Yeah, without a doubt. You sort of sit back and go, well, the sky's the limit for him. And everyone's going to sit back and go, well, he hasn't played since round 16. His match fitness won't be there. But what he does is he makes blokes beside him turn around and go, well, there's Dusty. I might stand a little bit taller. I've got a bit more confidence. But what it does for the opposition. And all of a sudden, you look at the Lions and they've got Noah Ainsworth who's out, Cam Rayner who's out, Marcus Adams who's out. And it's not just a young kid who's walking in there. They've got matchup issues. So Lynch is going to get taken by Harris Andrews. You've got Rewald, who's either going to be probably a Leicester or a Jack Payne, one of the talls who'll come in for. And then this is where the decision when Martin comes in, because if Martin wasn't playing, you'd have Starcevic go to Bolton and try and shut him out of the game. We all know what Starcevic can do. He'll be physical. He'll make sure Shea Bolton doesn't get his times. But as soon as Martin comes back in, that's where the question's going to be asked. Does Starcevic go to Martin or does Gardner go to Martin? That's the power of someone like Dusty and what he can do in big games. And especially a lot of those blokes were playing there a couple of years ago when Dusty kicked 6. So they all know what danger he is. And people are going to be dropping off to protect him, to protect Lynch, because Lynch's form against top 8 teams have been really good and in finals. So it's not just about what he can do with the ball, it's what he does to the opposition's mindset and coaching plans as well.
How bitter for Nat Fyfe to get to the cusp of the return of Fremantle to the finals, having led them through the barren years, and do his hamstring.
Yeah, you feel for anyone who gets to this stage, and we've just heard about Libba. Anyone who, for Fyfe, who worked so hard, was so instrumental in their 2013 rise up to playing the grand final, and then to have dark years again. But he's watched a lot. He has had a tough year with injuries. But yeah, he's just got to put his own disappointment beside him and behind him and just go and help what he can with this younger team. Because you look at their team, they've still got the Brayshaw, Sharong, Brody, Schultz. Like, they've got these good young players who 2 years ago were probably sitting back going, oh, they've got a long time to develop. But he's got to try and teach these guys or help these guys as much as he possibly can, because without him early in the year, they were sitting 2nd and 3rd. So we know that they can play quality football. They've just got to look past it. The skipper won't be there, and the other guys just have to stand up.
Fyfe hadn't been an integral part of anything that they'd done in the midfield, and part of the joke on his return was being treated like a newbie. So it shouldn't. It detracts from the leadership aspect. It certainly robs the game of one of its stars. But Fremantle has built its credentials without him.
And we've spoken many times this year about how impressive Fremantle have been without Fyfe, and even the way you just said and how they handled him when they brought him back. Fyfe in the past would never have played waffle. Fyfe would not have come in and just sat forward. They would have thrown him straight into the middle to get him fit. But what they found out over the last 12, 18 months about himself is you don't need one big player. And that's what good teams have done over the last 10 years. It's not about getting your key player and making him best, and that's what's going to win you the games. It's about a team defence, a team offence, and blokes sharing the load. And Fremantle in the first half, prior to Fyfe coming back in, were able to do that. So, yes, there's going to be some disappointed Fremantle supporters and Fremantle players that Fyfe can't be there. But what they have to do is they have to look past that and go, what football were we playing prior to Fyfe coming back in? And if you look at it, their stats were pretty good as that balanced team.
So I don't know how materially Fyfe's absence affects the matchup, but I do know how Tom Liberatore's does. He has been the heart and soul of that midfield when the Dogs have been at their most threatening.
Yeah, I think if you look at the Doggies over the last 3 or 4 years, if you look for big situation to stand up, it's been Bont. Bont has been the one over the last 3 or 4 years to who needs to grab this game or get a contested possession or battle the clearances. With Bont having a few injuries this year, I've noticed the last little bit that Libba just wants it. And then I look back to the final last year against Essendon when Essendon started really well against the Doggies. Looked like they were composing the ball and Doggies were chasing. Then it started to rain and one person stood up for him. It was Libba. He thought, nah, this is my style of game. And he hasn't looked back since then. So if you're looking at a barometer for a team who's going to get his hands dirty, work hard, stick up for his teammates, that is Libba. So for Bulldogs to go across over there, it's going to be a massive hole. But we've spoken so much about their midfield. Dunkley plays forward. They've got the flexibility and they've got enough good players in and around that, yes, they won't be able to do the stoppage stuff that Libba can, but you can bring Dunkley back into the middle and, look, he's a pretty handy replacement for him.
Luke Beveridge with us on 360 last night. If you all don't truly believe you are capable, then you're no chance. Is that true, Luke Hodge?
Without a doubt. And you can understand why Bevo is saying that because with the Bulldogs, it doesn't really matter where they finish, and you can count them off. If you look at what they did in 2016, they finished 7th, went on to win the flag. Last year, even they finished 5th. Essendon were outplaying them in the first quarter. They go on to playing the grand final. So believing is so much. What happens between the years in finals, leading up into finals, who shies away from it, who just sticks to the simple way of a game plan, who overthinks the moment. And one thing Bevo's probably got a lot of confidence in, that his team has shown in the past that when it's a big stage, and as you said, he's beaten 3 of the top 4 teams this year, so they can match it with the best.
Who's truly believing in their body of work, Hodgie, and who's living the con? Who's trying to talk themselves into believing in the idea?
Who's truly believing? I was worried last night for the Brisbane side when I saw Dimmer and how relaxed he was. The fact that he tried to do the old mute joke on how if Dusty's going to play or not. I sat back and I'm like, when Richmond are calm, when Richmond are relaxed, they're dangerous. If you look at a month ago, 2 months ago, Dimmer was a very serious person, fronting up, had his back up to the media. Last night I saw that and gone, it filters down. So if he's good and relaxed, what are the players thinking? And it brought back a memory of mine in 2019, my last year. It was that time when Dusty kicked 6, but at quarter time, the Lions had 10 scoring shots to Richmond's 3. It was 4-6 to 3 goals. And I remember they were walking out to the start of the second quarter, and they're all joking. They were joking around, laughing. I remember Rewalt and the likes were just so relaxed in a big pressure game. They got outplayed in the first quarter, and they went on to wipe the floor and beat us by 60 points. That as soon as I saw Dimmer like that, I thought, well, that's a dangerous side. So they are believing. I feel that Richmond at this stage, Dusty back, Lynch playing, their mojo's back over the last month, and the confidence they would have after turning a 42-point deficit against this side that they're playing into a win, I think they all believe at the moment.
When you had that, so it was 2015, the third of your flags, wasn't it? And that was the hard year. Illness for the coach, untimely injury everywhere, and losing the first qualifying final. Can you have moments where you doubt and then snap back into it? So how would you describe the course of that period?
Yeah, it was through 214, 215. So 214, we had a lot of injuries with Mitchell, Cyril, Brian Lake, Josh Gibson, and Clarko had the Guillain-Barré disease. But that gave us a lot of confidence for 15. So we went in after round 8 in 2015. We were 4-4, getting outplayed by a lot of teams, and we had a lot of things happen to us that year. But it was almost got to the finals time, and when we lost to West Coast in that first final over there, and they embarrassed us, they outplayed us. I think the margin was only 20 points or 25 points. It wasn't much, but it was how they played. That's what gave us a bit of a kick in the backside, and it's amazing that once you've got a group of blokes, and you're probably looking at Richmond like this, once you've got a group of guys who believe in each other and believe that when the pressure's on, that you trust them and you rely on them and they're going to follow through to what you expect and what everyone expects of one another, that belief is strong at this time of year. And that's what we had in 15. We had a lot of guys that had a lot of adversity over the previous 3 years. We stuck together and ended up winning in 15. And you look at Richmond, and that's no different. They've had a lot of injuries. Dusty's had some time away personally. Lynch has had some injuries. Everyone's ruled them out just like we were in 15. But then you see a little bit of belief and that turnaround in their moment, I believe, was the Lions game when they turned a 42-point deficit into a win, and then from that they haven't turned back.
Yeah. There's a tremor in the force when it comes to the Tigers, I think. Tell me, so the leaders, which you run our leadership portfolio, so there's the coaches and then there's the leadership group and the captains. So the PA voting from the player body was Pendlebury, Joel Selwood, Max Gawn as their top three, and they're all in this final series. Who, to your eye, are the leaders that have the potential to shape this final series?
I guess the way the game's going, it's the blokes in and around the ball. So you look at Gawn, Maxie's been a bit, I guess he's played a selfish role this year, given Luke a bit more of a time in the ruck. But I reckon he's someone who can have a real impact. I expect him to start in the ruck on Friday night, just to set the tone, just to sort of say, I'm here, I'm skipper. This is what we're going to do. We're going to intimidate you guys with their midfield. They'll be physical, they'll be verbal, just like they were against the Lions. And I expect that. So a bloke like a Gawn is someone who I expect to start there and have a real impact. Scotty Pendlebury's going to do his natural thing, control the game, be calm, pressure situations. And Sal, I guess Sal's probably his best is past him, but you still know what you're going to get. So that impact, the brute, that competitiveness that he has. But I'd be looking at Maxie Gawn's probably the one who's going to have the real impact for me out of the skippers there. But tell you what, if you look through the side, there's a lot of teams there with some quality leaders and guys that know how to step up when they really need to.
All right, so just take me through the four games and what your thinking is as we reach the eve of the final series. So you've detailed a lot of Brisbane and Richmond. Are you a bit fearful for the Lions?
I am. You talk about the believer meter. Can the Lions get past that? Can they get past the fade-outs in the second half of the last 3 or 4 games? The embarrassing game against Melbourne. Can they walk off and say, look, that's in the past. We've done our hard work throughout the year. This is 4 games to go. 4 games of good quality football. And in fairness to the Lions, they played some of their best football in those games. But then they had the second half of those games where they played their probably worst games of football. So that's test for them. Can they come into a side who's clearly got confidence and playing well and probably had it over the lines in the past and show their might? So at home, I'm hoping that they've learned a lot and they'll be able to stay composed.
Friday night, Melbourne and Sydney.
Sydney will have confidence. They beat them at the G early in the year. That was with a different lineup. Bud was out injured, so it's just whether they go for the Lions match up against Melbourne if the 3 talls doesn't work, and do Sydney do the same? Do they have a McDonald? Do they have Reid? Do they have Bud? Or do they forego one of them and have that zippy little dangerous forward line, which it's clearly that does hurt Melbourne or worries Melbourne's defence with the zippy ball movement and the change of direction and the agile forwards when the ball hits the deck. So that's going to be a big question for them. But Melbourne are going in with a lot of confidence. They played as good a football, as good a prep as what they wanted to. Travel interstate, a big game against a team who was playing for top 4 and demolished them. So I'll be leaning on Melbourne with a home game. But it's going to be big with the selection, though. Saturday,
twilight, Geelong and Collingwood.
What a game this is going to be. This is one of the ones where I sat back and I thought, this is one that I'd want to sit back, have a beer and watch. You sort of go through and Geelong have done nothing wrong this year, and I know a lot of Hawthorn people out there are hating it, how good Geelong are going, but they've been so impressive. They're no fuss. They've just become a stable, actually not just become, they've been it for a long time. They've been a stable outfit, but I guess the pressure's on them of can they take that next step in finals. And look, you got to take your hat off to Collingwood. I never thought I'd say this, but Scotty Pendlebury's probably right. If you're not a Collingwood supporter, they're no longer down the bottom. They are getting higher and higher just to watch them play. They never give up attitude. The blokes in there will do anything for each other and are just so composed. So, look, this could go either way. Probably because Geelong finished on top, I'm leaning towards the Cats, but looking forward to an absolute belter at the G.
And then Saturday night in the West, Fremantle and the Bulldogs.
I'm hoping that Freo can hold strong. I know we've spoke about Bevo's going to have the belief of the Bulldogs, and Libba out is such a big loss. They'll be able to cover him with the mids that we spoke about earlier. But as I said earlier, you got the Darcys, the Brayshaw, Sharong, Brodie. These guys have held this football club up all year. They withered a little bit towards the end of the year, but having a week off as a young group, I'm hoping that in front of the big, very boisterous crowd, that they're able to have a win just to show them that their development and their improvement is on the right track. And the fact that a final win would be amazing for them.
it would validate an awful lot. All right, so our final contemplation, Luke, is your old teammate Jordan Lewis is going to help Essendon out with the choice of coach. I wondered, is this a breach of the Hawthorn code?
No, because he's going to go in there and pick the worst possible candidate he can and make sure Essendon. No, Louis, I feel it was a great appointment. I think you've worked with him a lot over the years. He's a very calculated person. He understands football as good as anyone. And the rift of a Hawthorn-Essendon rivalry, the fact that he went to Melbourne for a few years, I think that maybe softened it a little bit. But I think it was great that they've asked him to go in there, and let's hope for all the Hawthorn supporters he picks the wrong person.
Very good. Hodgie, see you at the Gabba tomorrow night.
See you there, Gerard. Looking forward to it.